Hello guys, hope you are all okay. Welcome back to Dr. Arshad Nadeem Awan ultrasound and radiology teaching video. Today I'm going to discuss one of the anatomy topic, very important topic, and that is regarding cranial nerves. So where it arises from and which part of the cranium it possesses and what's the name of all these cranial nerves. There are mainly 12 cranial nerves, olfactory nerves and optic nerves and trigeminal nerves and vagus nerve and hypoglossal nerve. So their order and their origin. So I'm going to discuss in this video. This would be a concise video and hope you will love that. So let's start watching these images. Before going to talk about the 12 cranial nerves, just have a look to this image. It includes the anatomical structure from where these nerves arises. So here in the view you can see thalamus and there is a brain stem. So thalamus is a part of the brain, and then in the brain stem you can have a midbrain, there is a pons, and there is a medulla. So most of the nerves arises from the brain stem. Only two nerves, that's olfactory nerves and optic nerves, arise from the forebrain. Rest arrives from the brain stem, and down there is a spinal cord. So let's look which nerves originates from where, and I will explain slightly its origin and its function as well. Before going to look for particular cranial nerves, just have a look at a bird eye view, a general idea and a first layer of knowledge that it comprises of olfactory nerves, optic nerves, oculomotor, trochlear and trigeminal nerves, and then abducent, facial, and then vestibulocochlear nerves. Then there is vagus nerves, hypoglossal or glossopharyngeal nerves. So these are all in general. So now we are going to look for in particular what are the nomenclature for all these, and in sequence wise what's the first, second, third and fourth cranial nerves, and then we will look where from these originates with a slightly discussion about their functions. So let's start for the next image. On this image you can appreciate cranial nerve 1, which is olfactory nerve, and olfactory nerve is sensory nerve and it is responsible for the sense of smell. Down below the black arrow indicating cranial nerve 2, that is optic nerve. Still it is sensory nerve, and this nerve responsible for the vision. These both nerves are arising from the forebrain, and rest of the nerves arise from the brain stem. So on this image you can appreciate that cranial nerve 1, olfactory nerve, sensory nerve responsible for the smell arising from the cerebrum, while the cranial nerve 2, optic nerve responsible for the vision, is also arising from the cerebrum. So these red arrows are indicating the area where from these cranial nerve 1 and 2 arises. As I mentioned that cranial nerve 1 and 2, that is olfactory and optic nerve, arises from the forebrain, while the rest or the remaining cranial nerves all come from various parts of the brain stem. So the third nerve here, this black arrow indicating third nerve, which is called as oculomotor nerve. Oculomotor nerve is having two different motor functions. It has the function of controlling the muscles of the eye, and the second, it is responsible for the pupil response. It controls the size of the pupil, and it has the both controlling function. So oculomotor nerve, which is a third cranial nerve having a motor function. So the third cranial nerve, oculomotor nerve, which is arising from the midbrain pontine junction. So this is actually a junction between the midbrain and the pontine. This is the place where this oculomotor nerve arises. It's a motor nerve and it has two functions: controlling the muscles of the eyes and also controlling the size of the pupil. The fourth cranial nerve is called as trochlear nerve. This black arrow indicating the trochlear nerve, and so far the red arrow is concerned, it shows its origin. It arises from the midbrain, and it is one of the longest intracranial nerve so far the length is concerned. And as far as its function is concerned, it controls the superior oblique muscles of the eye, and the downward movements and the outward movement of the eye is responsible due to trochlear nerve, and it is motor nerve. On the image you can appreciate the fifth cranial nerve. It's a trigeminal nerve, and it's a large nerve, and it has both characteristics sensory and motor, and it has got mainly three divisions. It's ophthalmic division, its maxillary division, and its mandibular division. On the image again you can appreciate this blue color cranial nerve 5. It is trigeminal nerve, and as I mentioned, it is the large nerve, and it has both sensory and motor function, and it arises from the pons, and it has mainly three divisions. You can appreciate these three divisions, and these three divisions include ophthalmic division, its maxillary division, and its mandibular division. Cranial nerve 6, 7 and 8 respectively. Cranial nerve 6 abducens, and cranial nerve 7 facial nerves, and cranial nerve 8 vestibulocochlear nerves. These three nerves arises from the pontine medullary junction. So for the abducens cranial nerve 6 is concerned, it is a motor nerve and responsible for the lateral rectus muscle, and it arises from the pons, but basically pontine medullary junction. So for the seventh cranial nerve or facial nerve is concerned, it has both characteristics sensory and motor, and it is responsible for the facial expression, neck, sublingual, salivary glands and tear glands. As far as vestibulocochlear nerves cranial nerve 8 is concerned, it has sensory function. It is responsible for the hearing and the balance. It has two components, cochlear portion and vestibular portion. On this image you can appreciate cranial nerve 9 glossopharyngeal, and cranial nerve 10 vagus, and cranial nerve 11 accessory nerve. So far cranial nerve 9 is concerned, glossopharyngeal nerve, it has both motor and sensory activity, and arises from the medulla oblongata, and it is responsible for the throat, neck and tongue. As far as vagus nerve is concerned, cranial nerve 10, it has both sensory and motor activity. It's a very diverse nerve, and it responsible for the heart, intestine, trunk, chest and GIT, and it has the longest pathway. As far as cranial nerve 11 is concerned, its accessory nerves is basically motor nerve, and it's responsible for the neck muscles. Have a look for the origin of the cranial nerve 9, 10, 11. These are arises from the medulla posterior to the olive, and posterior to the olive 9, 10, 11. These three muscles are arises from the medulla. But on the first image where I have shown you an olive, so these three muscles arises from the posterior part of the olive. As far as cranial nerve 12 is concerned, it's hypoglossal nerve, and it's also arises from the medulla, but that is from the anterior to olive. So this was what the origin of the 12 cranial nerves. So far hypoglossal nerve is concerned, it is responsible for the tongue movements. So in all these images we have discussed about the name, slightly their functions and also their origin. Just a quick review for the cranial nerves through this chart. So far its origin is concerned and its names are concerned. So here you can see cranial number 1, olfactory nerves arises from the cerebrum. Number 2, optic arises from the cerebrum. So for the third is concerned, oculomotor, it's from the midbrain pontine junction. Cranial number 4 is trochlear from the midbrain, and trigeminal from the pons. Cranial number 6 is abducent, and 7, 8, these three are from the pontine medullary junction. So far cranial number 9, 10 and 11 is concerned, these are arising from the medulla posterior to olive. These three nerves arising from posterior to olive, and cranial number 2 that is also from the medulla, but that is anterior to olive. This is the image of the cranial fossa with the multiple small incisoras, small canal and small fissure from where these 12 cranial nerves would be arises. So let's start look for every single nerve one by one. So here on this image you can appreciate for the olfactory nerve cranial number 1 that is arising from the cribriform plate. This area has been shown to you, that is particularly for the olfactory nerve, which is cranial number 1. So far cranial number 2 is concerned, it is arising from the optic canal. Here you can appreciate the optic canal. As far as oculomotor, trochlear, trigeminal and abducens nerves are concerned, these are arising from the superior orbital fissure. On this image, cranial number 5, which is trigeminal nerve, has been particularly shown. Cranial number 5 trigeminal nerve has 3 divisions. Division 1, which is arising from the superior orbital fissure. The cranial number 5 trigeminal nerve division 2, which is arising from the foramen rotundum. Here you can appreciate the foramen rotundum from where the trigeminal nerve division 2 is arise. So far the division 3 is concerned, the trigeminal nerve division 3 is arising from the foramen ovale. So you have seen superior orbital fissure and foramen rotundum and foramen ovale. These 3 are the origins of the trigeminal nerve with its division. Cranial number 7 and cranial number 8, facial nerve and vestibulocochlear nerve, these both nerves are arising from the aquastic meatus. Here on this image you can appreciate aquastic meatus for the cranial number 7 and cranial number 8. Cranial number 9, 10th and 11, glossopharyngeal, vagus and accessory nerves, these 3 nerves arises from the jugular foramen. So jugular foramen has the origin for these So again a quick review for all these cranial nerves and their origin, which has been shown on this image. The red are all the cranial nerves and their names, and so far their origins are concerned, it's already you can see all these foramens over there. This chart has been given for the better understanding, and it includes its name and its basic origin. So you can see all that chart and compare it with the image which is already given it to you. Hope this video would be a great help for understanding the cranial nerves, their name, their function and their origin.